Well, let's go ahead and kick things off. Hello to everyone. Let's see. Here's the rise and the crowd. All right. Well, thank you for catching that, because I was still working on setting a couple of things up. Good day. Welcome to Monday, July 28th. 2025, and episode 96 of the HEF podcast. The HEF podcast is the podcast of the Home Education Foundation, which is an organization started by the beloved Brenda Dickinson. Let me tell you a little bit about her. For the last 40 years, Brenda Dickinson has been protecting the rights of parents in the state of Florida to educate their children as they see fit. And that's such an important statement, such an important phrase. And she's such a brilliant and tenacious woman for 40 years doing this work that she felt God was calling her to do. Tried to step away from it a number of times because she just wanted to get on with life and do things, and just kept seeing things happen or trends that would come, and she would highlight them and want to advocate for parents. So she has been the voice in the Capitol for the last 40 years, and we're very thankful to have her as our founder at the Home Education Foundation and to carry on the legacy of work that she started. We like to always start with a little bit of a tribute to her and a thank you to her. We're glad she's with us today as well. We also want to give a special thank you to our top sponsors. Our top sponsors are Arete, FPEA, Fisher Precious Metals, and TVHC Group. Without them, honestly, this would not be as possible as it is. There's a lot that goes into doing the work that we do, and the support of that we get from them makes up the bulk of what it is that we bring in. We do see support from parents, but it's we'll get into that, and we're very thankful for the support from parents. I had somebody reach out to me this week and say, "Hey, I'm just a small supporter, but I love the work that you do. And here's a question I had. And small or not, any support is enough." Let me explain. We'll dive into that. So we're very thankful that we have the support of the parents that we do have, and I want to talk about that because I had a parent approach me, a home education family, approach me and say that they had a giving fund that they wanted to help us out with, and they offered to do a fundraising match. And they said, we'll, for a duration of period, anything up to $6,000 we'll match. And I thought that was fantastic. So we're launching the Fund Match campaign of 2025. And hopefully you can help us with this. I want to kind of go through just a couple of things that are really important. Who supports HEF? Right now, I was doing some math the other day, and this is kind of what drove one of the conversations with that parent. There are 114,370 home education families in Florida, and we have roughly 100 families supporting the work that we do. That's less than 1%. That's significantly less than 1%. And it is what we work off of, and we never charge any of the parents or students for the advocacy work that we do. There's nothing about what we do that we charge for any of our services. It's all our time leveraged against the problems that face our community. And it started to dawn on me, like, what if we just had 1%, just 1% of the families in Florida donating at even a $10 a month donation tier or something to that effect. Even just 1% of the families, we would be in great shape. The work that we do, the communication tools that we provide for our community, the advocacy, the strategies, the Q&A workshops, the support, all of that we do at no cost to the families. The help that many parents have come to rely on when they reach out for, but can the districts do that, and can they do that? It's no cost to them, but we do need your support to do that, and we need your support to reach that 1%. So a little bit about what HEF and HEF Connect do. HEF is the lobbying organization that lobbies for parents' rights and freedoms in the state of Florida to make sure that they can educate their children as they see fit, that we build relationships with senators and representatives and government officials and organizations to help protect parents' rights and to stand up for parents being the authority over their children, and not that and that the state is not what am I trying to say here? That the children belong to the parents, not to the state, and therefore they should be the ultimate authority over what happens to them. And that's what HEF, the Home Education Foundation, does. HEF Connect is our sister organization, and that's the organization through which we do all the advocacy work that we do at the district level, at the state level, in the capital as well sometimes. With the Department of Transportation, believe it or not, when something goes wrong and someone is truant and they shouldn't have been truant because they were on PEP, but it all went awry, we help chase down things like that and right those wrongs. And then they say, oh, we don't have a form that'll allow us to even process this. No problem. We'll help create said form and pass it up the chain and see what we can do to provide those resources and help. And parents are oftentimes, they don't know. When colleges are telling students that they have to pay for this or that, and by law they don't have to, and they just don't know because Sally is new, we come in and we help educate and advocate for parents. So that's a lot of the advocacy work that we do, and that happens under our nonprofit. And then obviously the infrastructure that we build with our Discord community, our website, we're in the Facebook groups, we're constantly doing research, we host Q&As, and we do legislative updates at all of the organizations, all of the conferences and events around the state of Florida. And then one of the primary goals of HEF Connect is also to connect home education families with success and opportunities in life beyond K-12. Is the point of education as we see it is to launch your children to that successful, to be a platform to launch them to what's successful in life beyond that. And so technical certifications, apprenticeships, internships, mentorships, community and support to access those things, building a list and a repertoire and saying, hey, we know that this over here exists and that over there exists. Or a parent down in Palm Beach who says, I'm thinking about moving to Tallahassee because there's a career and technical program. And we say, hey, we actually might know some that are in your area. We help educate and advocate for parents and connect them with opportunities and options like this, all behind the scenes and all at no cost. So if you are wondering whether or not HEF is an organization worth supporting, I hope that after hearing all of that, the answer is yes. So let me introduce you to Fund Match 2025. It is a $6,000 promise from a home education family that is near and dear to the Home Education Foundation, that has said we will match up to $6,000. What does that mean? That means that if we had 50 new $10 a month supporters, that they would be able to jump in and match that. That's what ultimately $6,000 comes out to. That doesn't seem like a lot. It doesn't seem like a mountain to climb. It seems like a very, very shallow, it's almost like one of those golf holes, like click, maybe we could hit that. But we can only do it with your help. So are you one of the 50? And how does it work? So during this period, and we're going to launch this August of 2025. So this launches in just a couple of days. Any new $10 a month supporters that come on will be counted toward this progress. And we'll put a page on the website that gives a progress monitor for this, and we'll post on our social media and in our Discord to kind of keep updated of this. But any new $10 a month supporters that come on will count toward this, and any upgrades. So if you're upgrading from a $5 a month to a $10 a month supporter, it will count. Incrementally, there are tiers above $10, like the $25 and the $50 tier. And if you do those carry the weight of a $10 tier. So if you are a family that can do $50 a month as a tier, you are carrying the weight of $5, $10 a month donations. And so that will, in the progress bar, that will be counted because it's a dollar for dollar match in this situation. So we're thankful to have you. Any of these, if you fit either of these categories, it counts toward the match. And so we look forward to trying to help that. If you're already a supporter, we love you. We love you and we thank you. Just share this video. I'm going to clip this out, this section, this little presentation section. I'm going to clip it out. And if you're already a supporter, I'll skip the technical difficulties at the beginning. But if you're already a supporter, we love you and we thank you. And we appreciate what you're doing to be a part of this. But just please share this out so that we can find others who are interested in supporting the work that we do. So the question is, can we find just 50? I want to say thank you to all of those who support. We have our top sponsors, we have our families, and some of our top sponsors are actually families. People may or may not know that. They're home education families that have gone on to build businesses that love the work that we do and just want to see it continue. And so they have devoted a huge portion of themselves to doing that. But many hens make light work. And if we can just hit even 1% of the families in Florida donating, we'll hit our goals and we'll be self-sustaining. And without any further ado, Brenda, is there anything to wrap that presentation up that you want to say?
Well, we certainly do want 50 families to donate $10 each, but I believe that there are other home education families who have benefited from all of the work that we've done over the last 40 years, who may be wealthy enough to put more money toward it, because HEF Connect is a 501c3. So if you have a giving fund, or you want to find a good place to put money to help us keep the laws in Florida free as they are now, believe me, if we didn't have a voice in the Capitol, they wouldn't be as free as they are now. Then this is a good place. So some individual out there might be able to match it for $6,000 just on their own. But grandparents, many of them are well enough to do that you could hit your grandparents to say, hey, why don't you consider donating money to the Home Education Foundation that works so that we have the freedoms we have in Florida to teach our children and customize the education for each of those children. So think outside of the box. We don't want to limit this to just 50 parents with $10 donations. I just believe that you didn't have to pay anything for your child's education, administrative costs, or anything else that you would pay if you were in a public or a private school. So consider, I would say, $10 per child per year. That's like a cup of coffee or two a month for the benefit of being able to train your children at home.
Well said. Crystal, is there anything you want to add?
Yeah, I just wanted to reiterate what you said about sharing. We have a core group of people who watch these live streams every week and who listen to the podcast later on various channels, but we would really love to expand beyond our regular listeners for this so that we can reach those families who may not be as aware of what we're doing. When we first started working with HEF, I realized how many people just didn't know we existed. So please share this with other home education families and let them know that we're here, not just for this donation, but so that they know that we're here as a resource, but also share with them what it is we do and how it's benefited your family so that, you know, we can get the word out about this opportunity for this matching donation. And
where they can get accurate information. Facebook groups often share opinions and not facts, but we are here to tell you what the laws say and what your rights are. So I think that's really important, that they have an accurate resource for their information.
Absolutely. There's a lot of confusion on Facebook. So having a place to go for someone who can actually show you the statutes and give you the real answers, that's important.
It's very helpful. And I'm plugging on the screen is our Discord server. So if you haven't joined our Discord server yet, hop in. There's so much there that's of benefit. This is a great segue into what we're going to talk about for today anyway. Which last week and the week prior, I was on a call with the 67 districts in Florida, and they were going over a lot of what you need to know in case some people are new or in case some of the laws have changed or been updated in various ways. And so we like to be a participant in those calls, because sometimes we're working on those statutes and we know. Or there's a situation like right now, the leg.fl.us, the statutes website currently doesn't have the up-to-date 2025 statutes completely up to date. And so the bills that have been in effect that are actually law as of July 1st, the verbiage isn't there yet. And so people are trying to scramble to figure out, well, what's changed and what's new, and we don't know. And since we had been working on a lot of those bills, and we know, and we have the final copies of them in PDF form that we can share with them and highlight differences and go over stuff on the calls with them, that's where we were. But we also talked with them about our Discord server, because what those calls end up being sometimes is a little bit of a moment for them to vent frustration. They get on there. There's a lot of things that they're frustrated with. They feel that more work is being put on them and they're not being paid for. There's a lot of people who work everywhere feel that way about all of their jobs. So that's not uncommon. But they're getting a lot of conversations brought to them, or evaluations, end-of-year evaluations from PEP families. And by law, PEP families don't give the county their end-of-year evaluations, so this confuses the county when they receive them, and then they don't have, information on the children, because there's no letter of intent and there's no record, and who are they and how do we track these down? And one of the larger counties was saying how they have thousands of these coming in, and it's creating a lot of work for them. And I feel that burden as they were talking about it, and I said, well, you know what? You have a place that you can send all of the home education families and all of the PEP families in your district so that they can get help, support, community, and accurate information on what their rights are and what the requirements are for them as parents, and a community that will help them get up to speed with a lot of that. And if you'll just share our Discord, we'll take a lot of the heavy lifting of that off your shoulders, and we'll tap people in our community who are veterans that'll help other people. And eventually, hopefully sooner rather than later, we get the word out about how these programs work, and we have a robust community. They liked that. And so the Department of Education shared out the end of call document with everybody to wrap up the call. And they had some very nice things to say about the Home Education Foundation. And they definitely plugged our Discord in there so that every county has it and knows and can share it. And in addition to that, there was another situation that one of the southern counties was struggling with PEP parents who are showing up last minute or after the fact for testing, or they were requesting access to testing that they can get by the district, which by law you can. But you have to follow the same deadlines as everybody else. So all of the public school students and everybody else who has the deadlines for the testing, you have to follow those as well for signing up for them. And a lot of the parents said, oh, but we didn't know. And they're like, well, they've been on the site for X number of months. How do we get you to know? And so I thought, well, it would be really cool if we put together a spreadsheet that has all of those dates. And then we send that to the SFO and the Scholarship Funding Organization, AAA or Step Up, and let them send it out to all of the scholarship parents. Some of them didn't like that idea because that also sounded like more work for them, even though we're taking some of the work off of their plate by doing that as well. But they nonetheless, they agreed to help fill up that document. And so in the coming years, what we'll do is we'll do exactly that. We'll take all of the dates from all the districts as they funnel them to us, because they have to solidify their dates. I think they have them done by October. That gives them enough time. And then once they know what their dates are going to be, we will put together the point of contact and the dates for testing and stuff like that we'll send to the SFOs that they can send out. And then any parent with a link to that can access it as a live document. There are a lot of things like that people don't know that behind the scenes we try to solve, especially when it comes down to, do we need a law to fix this? Do we really need a law to fix this? Hopefully not. Hopefully just cooler heads can prevail and someone with enough ingenuity can put something together and just solve a problem. And that's what we look to do as much as possible in our community, is to work with the system so that we don't have to be a part of it as much as we don't want to be a part of it. Because, any roadblocks or hurdles that they hit that make it more difficult, they tend to want to create a law or a rule or something that forces something to be the way. And then once something is stated and forced to be the way, that's the only way that it can be. So, in addition to that, on the call, they went over some interesting information that a lot of parents may not know. So I kind of want to maybe touch a little bit of it. One of them is the Bright Futures. So there's a memo and a point of contact for Bright Futures for them to, each district should now be operating under the understanding that they are to process the Bright Futures hours for both home education students and PEP students. There was pushback. Well, they're not registered with us and we don't know them. How do we verify those hours, et cetera, et cetera? Which brings us to another great point on the call, which is that they are not required to verify the hours. They are simply required to input the hours that the parents give them. So that's a very important point of clarity. We had a family that was asking this question this week. Their county, I believe it's Wakulla County. Crystal, is that correct?
Yeah, it's Wakulla. The county was telling parents essentially that they have to get pre-approval for volunteer hours for Bright Future. Like the county has the authority to tell them where they can volunteer or to deny a place to volunteer. And that if they don't get them pre-approved, they won't accept the hours. And then the parent also told me they will sometimes let you do pre-approval like retroactively, but they reserve the right to deny it if you volunteer somewhere and you didn't get pre-approval. So I brought that up to Jason because I was like, I didn't know that the counties are telling parents this. And these parents were just, that's what the county said. So they were going through the process.
That's the way authority works. Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. So I brought it up to Jason and then he pointed out probably what he was about to say, which is, they're not supposed to verify the hours. They're just supposed to collect them. Mm-hmm. So this pre-approval process is something the county invented. It's not actually part of the process for Bright Futures hours.
Yeah, things like
for
that.
Home education students.
For home education
For home
students.
education and PEP students.
Yes.
Yes. They don't have the right. A few years ago, every individual county was creating their own list of which nonprofits they could work for. And we had to put into statute, in the Bright Future statute, to say that the state determines what the hours are, not the district. And the state has been very flexible. They just allow the parent, as long as it's a nonprofit and they have a letter from the nonprofit, they don't really deny any nonprofit hours. In fact, later they amended Bright Futures to say that you could work in a political campaign, which is really great for us. I believe Senator Lee was behind that, Jason, to
good.
Work in a political campaign. I mean, Smart guy. Learn government and how it works. So, but there are other options that you can do, and it is the district, and we wanted a uniform standard across the state for home education students. At that time we didn't have PEP, but that you can point them to that statute and say you don't have the authority.
Right. One of the concerns of the parents that I was speaking with, I was talking with two different moms and they both live in that county, and one of them was concerned that her hours would be denied because it was a religious nonprofit. And so that's a very important distinction, that the counties don't have the right to make a pre-approved list of where you can or can't do your volunteer hours.
Yes. Yeah. And further, there's in 1002.41, a school district cannot regulate or exercise control over a home education program beyond the requirements of the Florida statute, section 1002.41. Unless it's necessary for participation in a school district program. And this This requiring certain pre-approval for the hours, for Bright Futures, all of that is in excess of what's in that statute, which means they cannot exercise control or regulate it in that way. So the parent, it's very important that parents know their rights. It's extremely important. And when they don't know their rights, the lack of knowledge will result in taking the word of the person in the position of authority. So if the person in the position of authority is wrong, but you're taking their word for it, then you're going to be doing what's wrong. It doesn't mean it's evil or illegal, but it does mean that you don't have to, or you didn't have to. And maybe you're jumping through hoops that you didn't have to jump through, and you're losing little by little parts of your rights for the sake of expediency, efficiency, what's easier for the district to do. Well, if everybody would just fill out this paperwork, then we would just move right on. Add to that the letter of intent. It was very much clarified on this call that some districts have been putting together their own letter of intent, and it has additional fields of information that the parent can fill out. And that's just so helpful for them to do. Brenda, it's just so helpful for them to have all that information. And then little by little, one parent doesn't have a problem with it. Oh yeah, no problem. I want to do that. Let's do that. If you're coming out of a public school environment and you've always just filled out every piece of required paperwork anyway, then filling out the one that they give you that's a required piece of paperwork, it's no different than anything else you've always been used to doing. You push the button, pull the lever, and turn the wheel, and life keeps on moving, and you're none the wiser until they're asking you something you don't want to give them. But the truth is, the only thing that's required is the full legal name of the child, the date of birth, and the address. Those are the only things required as far as information to be on the letter of intent. And the Department of Education was very clear. There was some pushback from some of the districts. They've been trying to get more of that helpful information from parents, and some of the parents are giving it to them. And that's not a problem. In fact, the districts are not banned or barred from requesting the information from parents. It's not against the law for them to ask the parent for that information. It is just not within the parameters of their authority to require that information from the parent. So they can ask you for it. You are not required to give them anything beyond the full legal name of the child, the date of the birth, and the address of the child on your letter of intent. So you need to know that as a parent. You need to know where you can stand your ground on things, and if you want to, so that you can have that choice and access that choice. If you don't know what your choices are, you don't know how to access them. So our Discord is a great place to go to make sure that if you have any questions like that, you get quick answers, accurate answers with statute references. We'll come alongside you. We'll put, there's even, by county, there's even channels in there. So if there's a trend in your county, you can ask that question and we can help you spot it. And then 10 of you can send in your responses and go, actually, this is how we're to understand it and clarify things. When we stick together and we hold hands together, we get a lot more done. Crystal, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to add a really quick clarification to the letter of intent in case there are any new families that happen to watch this video.
Okay.
At a recent conference we were at, I had a parent, and this wasn't the point of our conversation. She just kind of mentioned it in passing, that she had just gotten permission back from the district to home educate. She had submitted her letter of intent and waited for them to get back to her. And we just got approved with permission. And so we're ready to get started. I just want to clarify the point that you don't ask permission.
You do not.
That's not how the letter of intent works.
Amen. Well, tell them how it does work, Crystal.
You submit the letter of intent, and that starts your home education program. You are telling the district that you're home educating. You're not waiting for their approval or permission.
Yeah.
That's how that works.
So to be super
the
technical.
reason for you telling them is because the superintendent by law is required to make sure that every student of legal age, compulsory attendance age, attends school regularly. Notice it says attend. It doesn't say educate. You just have to tell them where you are, where your child is, so they don't send the truant officer out when your neighbor reports you. So if you're registered in a home education program, not enrolled, registered, in a home education program. All they have to do is to call the home education office and they say, yes, they're registered, and they don't come to your house.
Yes, yes. And to be super technical, you can decide to begin your home education program at any time you're ready. You have to send in your letter of intent within 30 days of starting your home education program. So you can decide to do it at any time. And then within 30 days of that decision, you have to send in your letter of intent to officially mark the beginning of
30 days before or 30 days after.
Right. So
anytime during the year.
That's right. And anytime during the year. Yes.
And just for clarification, if you are doing PEP, you do not send a letter of intent.
That's correct.
And so your notification to the district would essentially be the application with the SFO. You've been awarded. There's nothing else you need to send the district. It's the SFO's job to notify the district of their list of students that are on PEP. Mm-hmm. So, and for that, you do have to wait for the application window because there's a certain window now. Mm-hmm. But just, again, for those who might be new, if you're doing PEP, you do not send a letter of intent.
That's correct. Also, if you're registering...
That's why you don't send your evaluation to them either.
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah, they don't get that information. And a lot of people don't realize that the PEP program is already satisfies the attendance requirement in and of itself. And so it's not under the purview of the district superintendent, other than the SFO lets them know who's enrolled. So at that point, that's the only connecting point that the superintendent has exercising control in the program. And I wouldn't even necessarily say that that's exercising control. They just have a duty to ensure that someone's enrolled. And that's it. So a lot of people are saying that, there's all of this oversight and government regulation and rules on it. Not yet. There's actually fewer for PEP at the moment. I have to caveat that heavily because, man, things can change quickly. How quickly did they want to remove PEP? Equipment purchases from PEP for the electives. So they wanted to wholeheartedly gut electives from the program and make it just core curricular academics. So little things like that are definitely somewhere in the near future, and we're constantly pushing back on that in conversations. I had a wonderful conversation with one of the senators this past week, and we were discussing, we were discussing some of the issues between the Senate and the House, and how his frustration with the House's push for accountability within the program is looking more and more like the regulations that are on public schools. And so that some of their ideas that they're throwing around look like that. And he said, I'm trying to deregulate the public schools. I want the public schools to have less regulatory environment. Why would we want to put this kind of regulatory environment that exists for the public schools onto the scholarships if the idea is to keep them free and open so that the parents can educate as they see fit? And I wholeheartedly agree with him. So he and I are allies. We are. That's
good because he's pretty powerful over there.
Yeah, we're going to be buddies, I hope, because honestly, we agree fundamentally on the parents first approach, and he's definitely trying to bring more of that community mindset and the parents first mindset into the public school environment and deregulate that. Why would he want to be pushing for more regulation in these scholarships? So little things like this are happening behind the scenes that give me a lot of hope, that are running counter to a lot of the popular momentum, the trends of popular momentum to standardize this and test that. And I talked with him at length about the issue with standards. So the moment that you create a standard as a benchmark so that you can aim for something, you then also mandate that is the benchmark and there's a standardized test. And then now you're starting to aim and teach toward the test so that you can hit all of those benchmarks, and the whole concept of an education goes out the window. It just becomes teaching to a test or school. And that's one of my core issues with school choice, is that it's, I think one of the senators, I don't want to get his name wrong, but it was in the Big Beautiful Bill. And he was being quoted in an article, and let me make sure I get this correct. I had the quote here, but he said, mm-hmm. Here it is. He said, parents should decide where their kids go to school. That this bill helps them do that. That was Senator Bill Cassidy of Louisiana, I believe. Yeah, except that that's not what we're pushing for, the freedom to pick the school. We're pushing for educational freedoms. We're pushing for the freedom to educate your child as you see fit, which is totally different. I had another wonderful conversation with one of the representatives, and this representative was telling me about how their family had grown up on a farm, and a pretty large, sizable farm. And the representative's dad, at the time that father was in school in his formative years, there was a issue with the cows and the herds, and they were fighting a big battle of worms and things like that. And it was the choice of go to school or save the farm. And if the entire point of an education is to teach you the kinds of things that help you launch and be successful contributing citizen in life, how is saving your farm not a huge part of that? This whole idea that we've bunkered down on school, it's the only way, it's the default measure, it's kind of a bit of distraction at times from the actual goal of educating our children and getting them to be self-sustaining, contributing members of society. And this particular representative was also agreeing with me on that very same point. And even though this particular representative was a member of public education, and a lot of their children were as well. So it's the tides are shifting, and the understanding is peeking through the surface. I want to see it grow. I want to see that differentiation become normal. I want to see that become mainstream, that we dismantle the idea of the systematic approach as the default and only way, and anyone who doesn't do it that way is somehow weird and should be ostracized, when the truth is, get them the education they need to stand on their own 2 feet and send them off. Launch them. Give them the education that they need to stand on their own 2 feet and launch them. Life is challenging, and a lot of people switch careers midway through life, or they, their life takes a big turn, something happens, and they have to pivot and shift, and they end up completely in a different place, area, zone, skill set, whatever, from whatever it was that they started life with. Brenda?
That happened to me. That's why I was home. That's why I was lobbying.
Oh, good point. Yeah, me too.
I turned down a job promotion so I didn't have to work with the legislature before I left the state and stayed home with my children. So you don't know what life is going to bring, and you need to be able to adapt, as you're saying, and have the skills to learn and to research to figure out the next step.
100%. Could not agree more. And ultimately, that's what we do. We get on these calls. We work with our representatives and our senators across the state. Sometimes they think we have good ideas. Sometimes they think we're a little weird, until they come to a broader knowledge of what it is, that we're trying to do. Some of them don't sit on the committees that we're in. And then when it comes to the larger voting atmosphere over these issues, they're scratching their heads, or they're having questions, or they're someone's senator or representative from their area, but they don't sit on the committees, but the person in their area wants them to get involved somehow, or wants them to be in the know, so they're asking questions. And there's a lot of behind the scenes information sharing and education and collecting data and doing research and bringing people together and telling stories effectively and letting them see faces to the things that are otherwise ink and paper or rules that we end up doing. There is something that is a little bit of a shift that was talking with them about, so a little bit of a shift in our conversation here, but in 2023, 2024, the Department of Education of Florida put out the statistics for what students are where and how they're registered and all of that. And 2023 was when the first round of PEP launched. There were 155,000 home education students, 155,532. And that was after a hike from COVID, the post-COVID environment. A lot of families in Florida, all the schools close, and then when they reopen, not everyone goes back to school. So we saw a pretty decent hike there. There was a pretty decent jump. I believe it was before that around 130,000, and then it stayed up around 155,000. In 2024-2025 school year, so the most recent data that we have that they shared on the call was that they had 152,871 home education students. So that's 152,000 down from 155,000. In that time, PEP, the Personalized Education Program, has seen its, growth spike up to around 80,000 or so scholarship students who are quote unquote homeschooling. And people have asked me, does this include umbrella school students? Does this include other private education students? No, those are actually technically private school students. This is counting the students who are enrolled with their county as home education students. And before PEP, this was the only way to be registered as a home education student in the state of Florida. That wasn't the only way to homeschool. The existence of umbrellas were out there, but they're not counted among the number of home education students in Florida because technically, through statute, they're private school students, so they get counted among the private school numbers. So they're reflected in the data, they're just not reflected in the home education students data. So this is the absolute people who are registered directly with their county through a letter of intent to home educate their students. So clarifying that. It's dropped 3,000, but PEP has spiked from whatever it was at the beginning, 0, maybe 20,000 the first year, and now it's at 80,000. And you can tell, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to look at that number and tell that those are not a 1-for-1 ratio. So we didn't have 80,000 home education students leave home education and jump into PEP and go, yay, now we're PEP students and we're homeschoolers with the scholarship. So if that's the case, where are they coming from? Where are all of these PEP students that are in the PEP scholarships coming from? The possible avenues are that they are new, completely new, so they just aged in, or they are coming from public school, or they are coming from private school. That's pretty much it. Those are the other avenues.
Or they moved to Florida from out of state, because we did have some families do that.
Yeah, moved in from out of state is it's one that I've heard a significant amount of, and they wouldn't have been in our system before. So like the new students that were aging in, that would be an avenue for sure. So it's very interesting. This kind of goes back to highlight the issue that I was talking about several weeks back about culture driving policy. So politics is downstream of culture. These are not your traditional home education families in the PEP scholarship program. Not all of them, not in large swaths, and not as a whole. So I had a senator ask me during the last legislative session, when will we know if we have reached max capacity? Like we have reached that saturation point where homeschooling families, and he didn't say home education, he said homeschooling. But when will we know if those homeschooling families, we've reached saturation point with it? And I said, well, we won't know that. And we won't have that data ever, because at the end of the last legislative session, there was created in the PEP statutes a method of using the PEP scholarship that allowed private school students a more flexible private school option. So they could do a hybrid option. So they become a PEP student, then they could use that PEP scholarship at the private school for 2 or 3 days a week, and then make up the remaining time on their own. And that isn't necessarily something that home education students were lining up to get their hands on. It is, however, something that a lot of private school families have been very interested in, having a more flexible private school scholarship option. And so if you look at these numbers, you drop from 155,000 to 152,000 at the same time that PEP peaks to 80,000. The numbers don't match up one for one, that these are all home education families. So the question of where are they coming from, a potential answer is that a lot of them are coming from private school environments where they're looking for a more flexible private school option. Now, some people may be emotional about this data and think, oh, that's not fair, or these aren't real homeschoolers, or whatever. And that's not where I'm trying to go with this information. That's not the point of me bringing this up. The point of me bringing this up is so that as we understand what's happening on a big picture level, a macro level, the idea that someone might toss out there eventually and say, oh, this is really cumbersome to process all of these reimbursements. What if we just had 10 curriculum options for parents to choose from? If these are not your traditional home education families, they're pretty likely to be coming from a private school or public school environment and go, man, we never had choices before. Now we've got 10 choices. That's a lot. This is great. Meanwhile, your home education families who are a part of this program are going to look at this and go, we had every choice before, and now we only have 10. We're out. And when they dip out, there's a good chance it makes no difference. And that's kind of one of the things I think is a really big issue. Is one, your ability to walk away from the scholarship is critical. If you can't walk away from it, then it controls you. And I just want to be clear about that. That if you are not positioning yourself in a way where you understand that you can do home education on a $0 budget, it's possible. Is it comfortable? No. Is it going to require sacrifice? Yeah. Will you have to do it because you're convicted? Certainly. But it's possible. And if you don't maintain the disposition that you're ready to walk away, and this is for everybody, whether you came from home education or public school or private school, this is an important message, that you understand what your rights are and what you can do, what you're capable of, so that you can access it. Because the very moment that it becomes onerous, it needs to experience an 80% drop in participants. The moment that some crazy idea is launched and voted on and put in, it needs to see an 80% no thank you, we're out. And I'm not sure we have those numbers, just to be honest with you. I'm not sure, based off of this data, I'm not sure we have that mindset among the participants in PEP. Now, I'm not polling them. I don't have access to that. I don't know what they're thinking. So I don't have a crystal ball that I consult. I do have an 8-ball, but it's been very unreliable lately. When I shake it, it's not very helpful. I'm just looking at the numbers and matching up trends. And what I see happening is that there's a very good chance this scholarship, the primary participants in the scholarship program, are people from out of state who didn't like their program and they're coming to this one. People from private schools who want more flexibility. People from public schools who don't like what they're seeing and want a different option. And that is the bulk, in my opinion, of the people coming into the PEP program. And I applaud you for the top of that scholarship statute section where it says that the legislature recognize the basic fundamental right of every parent to teach their children as they see fit. I applaud you for participating in that and taking whatever steps. If this is the beginning of your journey, taking those steps. But I really want to encourage you. To see the potential future, that you don't actually need the scholarship. You do not need the scholarship. It is a wonderful opportunity. And I think it should be seen as such. But I think that, every snake charmer knows the dangers of the potential bite. You need to have your vaccines on hand. or what is it? The antidote. Your antivenom needs to be on hand. You need to understand what your options are as that program becomes onerous. Brenda, you look like you want to say something.
No, I agree.
Okay.
I think, though, that people are not going to be comfortable walking away in the first 2 years because they're not really home educating their children.
Agreed.
But we have to be so careful, because what the law says is what we have fought for, but we also have, as you know, the scholarship funding organization making rules and regulations that are not in statute. So we have to watch those entities to make sure that they're not imposing, like you said, 10 curriculums because it's more easily administered than all over the board, like home education families choose their curriculum. And so, we have to keep pushing back. That's why we need the Home Education Foundation to be at the Capitol. And if we voice those concerns, we have a lot of people in positions now that will fight to push back on them. But, all the things that you've said are so accurate. If people are like, oh, well, now have 10 choices. Oh, I don't mind giving them extra information. Oh, well, what we're doing is giving up our rights, and that have been so hard fought all these years to get us to this point. So it's important. It's so, so, so important that we have a voice in the Capitol to be able to say, no, you can't do that. The law says this. And for parents not to voluntarily give up their rights.
Correct. Yeah, 100%. And just to add to that, oh man, it escaped me. You gave me a thought, and now it's gone, as is the way of ADD. The mindset shift that you talked about of the people coming out of the public and private and other options into this, and then not being homeschooled. That's what it was. I have heard from many among our community that, well, if you're taking a scholarship, you're not a real homeschooler. And I think I understand what they're trying to say. I think it's poorly said, but I think what they're trying to say is you're not coming from the traditional mindset of I will do it regardless homeschooler. I'll do it regardless of what it costs me. It's the sacrifices I'll pay for the thing that I want, which is to recapture the minds and hearts of our children, plant them squarely on their feet, and send them off into life. And in that way, I think I understand what they're saying. You're not a real homeschooler. You're not doing it for those reasons. I think that's what they're trying to say. But I think that statement creates a division in a community that needs unity. Because what we should be saying to all of these new people is, you're homeschoolers now. This is how we do things. And we should bring them on board and teach them how to say, no, I don't need to give you more information than that. No, I am not going to sign that piece of paper. No, you will put my hours in, because you're not allowed to vet or verify them. You're simply required to process them. And we need to pull them in and say, you are real homeschoolers now. Act like it. Because that is the shift. That's the shift that we need from the people coming from these other avenues. Is you're not a private school student. If you're using PEP funds to attend a private school, they may require you to enroll, but you're not a private school student. You're a homeschooler. You're free to go. You are free to leave those doors and walk out of that school and then educate as you see fit, however you see fit. That's your freedom, and you have it at your fingertips, and you should access it whenever you feel like you want it. Boom. I think that private schools helping out and giving classes here and there is great. And then according to their business models, they're going to want more money. They're always going to want more money. Everybody always wants more money. That's not going to go away. But as a parent, with all of these programs, micro schools, learning pods, blah, 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 coming at you, you should know you're a homeschooler now. act like one. Take that money and educate your child as you see fit. Make all the choices. Make the small ones, make the big ones. Don't abdicate that to anybody else. That's yours to make. Those choices are yours to make, and they're beautiful, and they're fun, and they're challenging, and they suck sometimes.
That's why,
and they're
that's
great.
why having a community to talk to is so important, because we mentioned this a little bit on the chat we did on here with Kim Hannon, where having people who are a few years ahead of you in the home education journey, whether they're doing PEP or they're still registered with the county, parents that are new to this don't realize that they have options. They just don't realize.
Yeah.
So they may be spending their entire scholarship at a private school because they were in a private school before, and they don't realize that they could get the same educational resources way less expensive somewhere else and be able to customize their education. They're not stuck at that private school. Once you're in PEP, that is your attendance track. You can leave the private school. You don't have to take your classes there.
Correct.
So having people that, like you said, draw them in, encourage them to explore their options, help them see the freedoms that they have to make those choices and to customize their children's education, because that's new to them. The ability to customize is new to them.
Yes. I think that, I often do this to my kids. I'll put them in a situation and then I'll ask them, like, why did you do it that way? And I come to realize that without instruction, they didn't really know another way. And I feel like because of the instruction we've been given for the last 100 years, that public schools, school choice is crammed down our throats. That's the instruction we've been given year after year, decade after decade, that this is the way. And the truth is, for all of human history, it hasn't been the way. Parents have been responsible for their kids. It always bothers me when they're like, well, traditional schooling. I'm like, what are you talking about? Tradition. Go back to the tradition of teaching your own kids. That's the tradition. This new public school thing is an experiment. We'll see how long it lasts. Anyway, you are free. You have rights spelled out in the scholarship program. Don't give them up. Know what they are. Don't give them away freely. Don't trade them out.
Because it hurts other parents as well.
Say that again.
Because it hurts other parents if you give them away.
Yeah, true. Well, everybody else is sending us this paperwork. Why do you have a problem with it? Why are you the only stick in the mud who's not doing that? You just want to be ornery. You're just being so difficult. Like, yes, I am. Thank you. Thank you for noticing me.
That's why I'm home educating my children.
That's right. Hey, look, if I wanted them to be taught by you, I would have sent them to you to begin with. But what is it they say? If you send your children to Caesar, don't complain when they come back Roman.
Good point.
They're your children.
And remember, you're giving the authority of a parent away to whichever form of school you put your children in.
Whichever form. Yeah. Great
whether
point.
It's a micro school, whether it's a public, private, whatever school.
Virtual.
You're giving the authority away.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I was even talking with some parents yesterday about the moldability of young minds as they get into college, and how some of the college programs, when it gets to literature choices, they're saying, oh, we're going to teach about narrative voice, and we're teaching about this, and what they really are doing is picking books that are morally objectionable or morally blurring. And they're using those. It's a good example of a narrative voice. It's like you could have picked any other books, a lot of other books for narrative voice that have a great display of narrative voice. Why did you pick that one? Why did you pick that one that's like deviant and line blurring? It's not. I think Sam Sorbo said it the other day whenever I was on the podcast with her, or we were at the conference. She said, once you realize that education's not neutral, that school is not neutral, it's not. It's indoctrination. Then the game becomes a lot easier to play. They're not just there as a neutral option to educate your children. They're educating them as they see fit. And you have the right by statute to educate your children as you see fit. And you get to make the choice. Hand them to someone else to educate as they see fit, or educate them as you see fit. And don't give up that right easily. You have it. It's been fought for. It's been carved out. It's been spelled out. It's been defined. We continue to push on it and define it and make sure people are aware of it and hold that line bright so that people can see that and not fudge with it. And that's what we do with the Home Education Foundation. And that's why we're called the Home Education Foundation, because it was that bright line that we wanted to carve, that Brenda wanted to carve originally, to make that so that parents could have that and stand on it. Brenda, thank you so much. Thank you for being with us today, too. So glad. So glad. If you're new, join our Discord. Hop in. There's a lot of information in there. You can go to our website, and on our website, under the community tab, you'll see our Discord, and you'll be directed to an information page that will tell you all about how it works, what to expect, and why it's important, or what you can get out of it. And there's join links there. So by all means, that's flhef.org/Discord. Give it a try. Get in there. If you're new and you're trying to find your feet or find confidence, or you've got lots of questions, there's a lot of options for community and answers in there. If you're a dad, there's a dad's area in there that moms can't see, so you can get in there and vent and wax philosophical and how you homeschool. And there's an area for moms that the dads can't see, so you can get in there and wax philosophical and talk about how much you spend or don't spend on homeschooling, and they don't get to see it. So there's a lot of really cool options. We have a future vision of building in. There is already a place for students, for young people, but we have a vision of building in a more robust debate style community for young people, so that they can be given prompts on a monthly basis and get in there and kind of argue back and forth and understand the rules of logic. I'm still working on the fine tuning of all of that, but it is just me over here, and we don't have the funding for mega internships or apprenticeships like I wish we did. But if you could help us with that as well, we can put a lot more of those pieces together. And there is a bigger plan for the future and the growth of the community as a whole. If you're not a supporter, we would highly invite you to be one. You could go to flhef.org/support, and there is any number of options here for you as a parent, or if you're a business and you're looking for a little bit of additional visibility. There are visibility areas in our Discord and our website just as a recognition area for those larger supporters that come on board. We do not allow self-promotion or business promotion in our Discord, aside from that, because we didn't want it to be a place where people are going to get spammed by anybody's great idea that they had that homeschoolers need to know about. We want it to be a place of support, interactive support and community. And as such, only the vendor supporters of HEF are allowed to do minimal promotion. There's designated areas for that, so that no one is bombarded with any of that information that they don't want. So aside from that, we do the podcast every single Monday at noon, and we're wrapping up today. So if there's anything that you want to know or ask, we do these on Facebook intentionally so that they can be live and interactive, and people from the community can ask questions. But then they also go up on Spotify, YouTube, Rumble, Apple Podcasts, Audible, iHeartRadio, and more once we're done. And so you should be able to access them anywhere as the HEF podcast. We want to give a special thank you once more before we close things out to our top sponsors. Actually, Brenda, I usually give you the last word. Is there anything you want to do and close today?
No, I just think that the information needs to be shared. There are 155,000 people out there that are being home educated. Please tell your friends and family.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and stand up for your rights. Absolutely. thank you to our top sponsors, Arete, FPEA, Fisher Precious Metals, and TBHC Group for being with us and supporting the important work that we do. We thank you so much for that. And without further ado, we'll let you have your Monday back, do some beautiful things with it, make some wonderful memories, and we'll see y'all next week.